March 28th, 2017, and this video is called Fukushima Has Humanity in Hot Water, and that is one hell of an understatement. Now, the melted reactors of Fukushima have been leaking hot water into the ocean, and satellites can see the added heat. See right over here? Now, there are 3 uncontrolled reactor cores that have melted from overheating. Now, this has never happened before. And one of them has a good bit of plutonium in it. It's called MOX fuel. So we are dealing with unknowns here. Now, what is surmised is that these melted blobs of nuclear reactor cores have burned down into the ground next to the Pacific Ocean. Now, the groundwater there moves into the ocean at a very slow pace, but the nuclear heated water is now surface water. Now, it may only be a few dozen meters in depth. The fact that it contains many radioactive compounds could be keeping it from mixing with the unpolluted cold seawater, besides the fact that radiation still produces constant heat. Now, you could see here's Japan, and here's the water. This is the Pacific Ocean, and you could see right outside here. Now, this isn't an anomaly. This is an actual picture taken in 2017, right over in here. You could see the heated water. Now look anywhere on the globe here, except we do have some areas on the east coast of the United States. But look at this whole Pacific Ocean. Where is there any more red? It's right outside of Fukushima. Now, what we have are uncontrolled reactors, and the science shows excess heat that is being produced, and that heat is affecting the temperature in the nearby Pacific Ocean. Now, these cores are constantly creating heated water. They are out of control, and the nuclear material is generating heat, because that's what nuclear power plants do, is heat water. Now, this is climateviewer.org. And if you go into the pollution with nuclear, it's going to show the nuclear meltdown. Now, here's Fukushima. They're all closed, 1 through 4. Except they don't show that 5 and 6 are closed. But if you go into the fallout, it's going to show you where the fallout went, where red is the hottest. And they could show you the plume. This is by 2012. This is how the plume was distributed. Now you could see the highest areas are right outside of Fukushima here. Now the cores are underground now. But what the cores have done is heated a massive amount of water up just from a few degrees. And now that water is seeping into the ocean, and satellites are seeing this extra heat. Now, stressing that there is no end in sight to the ecological fallout, the authorities have raised the safe levels of radiation to deal with the crisis. Now, here's the Null School, earth.nullschool.net. And this is showing just the currents in here. Now you could see it's very slow go right outside the nuclear power plant over here. And as those radioactive particles get picked up, it gets shot and it's starting to get dispersed over here. But what you want to do is you go to this SSTA, which is sea surface temperature anomalies. And you'll see these hot spots over in here. Now this is sea surface temperature anomaly. And the sea surface temperature anomaly, its anomaly is the departure from average conditions Now, the sea surface temperature is the top millimeter of the ocean surface. The anomaly is the departure from normal conditions. Now, these spots right here are the anomalies, which are hotter. Right here, it's hotter into the reds and these yellows. So this is the departures from what is normal. So it's definitely picking up this heat over here. Now here is a modeling from NOAA. This is the plume just from the first week of cesium. Now this is showing you a dispersion of that cesium, where they think it's going to go. Now this is only for the first couple months of the initial plume. But remember, this has been leaking for 6 years now. Now this is a report about the dry storage casks and spent fuel at Fukushima Daiichi on November 2010. This was a couple months before the accident happened. Now here's the status of spent fuel at TEPCO. At the Daiichi plant, there's 6 power plants. Storage amount per ton of uranium as of 2010 is 1,760 tons of uranium. That's a lot of uranium. Now, what was already done at units 1 through 6 is they increased the capacity of the spent fuel pools by re-racking them. They installed a common spent fuel pool and installed these dry cask storage facilities, which I'm pretty sure is in the basement of the facilities, which shows that's the bottoms in here. I think these are the dry casks. And here's the spent fuel pools. Now the storage status of those spent fuel for Daiichi, their storage amount, spent fuel pool at each reactor unit. Each reactor had 4,500. So the storage amount between the spent fuel pool, the common pool, and the dry cask, they had 10,000 spent fuel. 10,000 of them. Here's the pool, how it was stored. Now, commercial light water reactors store spent radioactive fuel in a steel-lined, they call it a seismically designed concrete pool right here. But you remember, we're talking about a 9-point earthquake that has never been witnessed in human history. So they may have thought that they designed it, but I don't think it withstood it. Now, unit reactor 3 says, unlike the other 5 reactor units, reactor 3 ran on mixed core containing both uranium fuel and mixed uranium and plutonium oxide. That's the MOX fuel. Now, plutonium is a highly dangerous material to be messing with, but that's what they were using in reactor 3. Now here's the fact sheet about Fukushima Daiichi. Used nuclear fuel at Fukushima Daiichi plant is stored in 7 pools, 1 on each of the 6 reactors plus a shared pool, and in a dry container storage facility containing 9 casks. 60% of the used fuel on site is stored in a shared pool in a building separated from the reactor buildings. 35% of the used fuel is distributed between the 6 reactor fuel storage pools, and the remaining 6% is stored in 9 dry storage containers. There are no safety concerns regarding the used fuel in dry storage at Fukushima Daiichi. Seems like there's never no safety concerns. Used fuel pools are robust concrete structures designed to protect the fuel from the most severe events. The used fuel pools at the Fukushima Daiichi reactors are located at the top of the reactor buildings for ease of handling during refueling operations. The spent fuel pool, there's storage for the spent fuel from nuclear reactors. Spent fuel rods generate intense heat and dangerous radiation that must be contained. The water is what contains that heat. Now, I don't believe a word that TEPCO says, because in their own annual report in 2016, they admit that up until 2016, everything has been a lie from them. So much that they had to get rid of the president within a year of the accident. A third-party committee investigation into the issue of information disclosure and public relations associated with the accident at Fukushima Daiichi Nuclear Power Station confirmed that the true nature and extent of the accident was not fully disclosed on the order of the then president of TEPCO, who immediately after the accident instructed employees to not use the term meltdown. Reflecting on the inappropriateness of its information disclosure, TEPCO Holdings would like to extend its sincere and deepest apologies to the general public, especially residents of the area in the vicinity of the power station, for its failure to clearly communicate the facts about the accident. So in other words, what they're saying is they totally lied or did not disclose the truth. Now, this is very interesting. In State Department emails that were released with the Fukushillery email release, this is to H. This is to Hillary Clinton. The subject: synopsis of what is new to cause increased concern. As clarification for what is behind the greatly increased concern evident of the 4 points distributed by the NRC, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, this morning, here I offer here for internal use only my reading of what has changed overnight based on these Emergency Operations Center updates. Water levels in the spent fuel storage pools at Fukushima Daiichi 1, 2, and 3 are now reported to be falling. At Unit 4, total loss of water from the spent fuel pool has been reported. It is now reported that the zirconium cladding of the fuel is already burning to an extent unknown in the spent fuel pools in both Units 3 and 4. Remember, 3 had the plutonium in it? Note that the jargon zinc interaction in the NRC update means the stuff is burning. High radiation levels are making it extremely difficult for safety workers to deal with the situation. His interpretation: burning of the zirconium cladding on fuel exposed to the air, as in the spent fuel pools in buildings that lost their integrity due to hydrogen explosions, will lead to large releases of fission products to the atmosphere. Complete destruction of the fuel and release of large fraction of the contained radioactivity would be expected to occur over a period of several hours, say between 3 and 12, once large-scale burning has commenced. These releases will not be attenuated to the extent expected for releases from a reactor core after containment failure. They could approach, even exceed, the quantity of level of radioactivity released at Chernobyl. This is because each spent fuel pool contains the equivalent of one or more complete reactor cores. Now, this is coming to Hillary Clinton, and they kept all this from the public, so we all can suffer. Now here's a diagram of Fukushima Daiichi. Here's the spent fuel pool. Right over here. So basically it is not the top floor, it's the second top floor from the top. Remember that. Now here are pictures of the reactor buildings after the explosions. Here's number 4. Now here's that top level, and look at this is the level at which the spent fuel pool is located. Now this roof blew off. The floor below where the spent fuel pools are is blown out. Even down in here it's blown out. Here's the top floor here. Here's the second where the spent fuel pool is. This one is even worse. This is reactor number 2. No, this is reactor 3 with the MOX fuel in it. Blown to bits, and they're going to try to say that they saved these spent fuel pools. Now here is 2, which is having the big problems right now. So radioactive that robots are dying in it. And here is number 1, which is just basically a frame of a building also. Now remember these pictures, what they look like. The first and second floors are gone, completely missing. Now look at this, just a bunch of rubble, and there's a hole in here with steam pouring out of it. Now corium is also called fuel-containing material or lava-like fuel-containing material. It's a lava-like mixture of portions of a nuclear reactor core formed during a nuclear meltdown. It's the most severe class of nuclear reactor accident. It consists of nuclear fuel, fission products, control rods, structural materials from the affected parts of the reactor, products of their other chemical reactions with the air, water, and steam, and in the event that the reactor vessel is breached, molten concrete from the floor of the reactor room is all poured into this blob they call corium. Now, cool water is constantly flowing into a reactor and getting heated by contact with the fuel rods. That's why they're always cooling them down with fresh water. Then, at high temperature, it flows out. Here is another important part of reactor technology. The temperature reached in a nuclear reactor is in the range of 300 degrees Celsius. Now, this is just normal operating temperature. Now, that comes to 572 degrees. That's why the water's constantly got to be poured around those rods to cool the water, take that heat away. Now, on this physics forum, someone asked the temperature that does molten corium burn at. Now, I'm just taking this guy's opinion. He says uranium oxide melts at around 2,800 degrees Celsius. Steel melts at around 1,450. Corium would probably be somewhere in between. Metals may flow below melting temperature. Now, some folks assume 3,000 degrees Celsius. Now, if you go back in here, 3,000 degrees Celsius is 5,432 degrees Fahrenheit. That seems like wicked hot. Now, as of May 28th, 2015, that's why with them coming out in 2016 and saying that they apologize for lying and not telling the truth, I don't believe any of what they say here, because they're saying that fuel removal from Unit 4 spent fuel pool has been completed. How can that be? Number 4, this is the one that they're talking about. The spent fuel pool is right in this level here. It's trying to say that it's been completed, removal of it. Preparatory works to remove fuel from units 1 through 3, spent fuel pool and fuel debris. Removal are ongoing. Now in Unit 1 it says fuel removal to start in 2017. Number 2, removal to start after 2017. Unit 3, removal to start in 2015. And they're saying in removal completed in 2014 on Unit 4. I think that's a lie. That's Unit 4. There's no way those spent fuel pools survived. They're also trying to say that this is how many spent fuel pools, what they had in it. Unit 1, 2, 3, 4. They say they removed 1,533 assemblies. I don't buy a word that they say. I still think they're fucking liars. The radionuclides give off heat by the process of radioactive decay. This is the reason why spent fuel rods have to be submerged in water, is to keep them cool so they don't melt down. Now, they're stressing that there's no end in sight to the ecological fallout, so authorities just raised the safe levels of radiation to deal with the crisis. Now, here is the global mean surface temperature. Global mean. And look at, you always, since 1880, it's always been an up and down, and it seems like we're slowly getting a little bit warmer. But look what happens after Fukushima. It goes right through the roof. It's the highest it's ever been, the global mean temperatures from January to June. Now here's the North Pacific sea surface temperature anomalies. And look at this. Here's Fukushima in 2011. And look at it. It goes up, 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 down, up, and away. And this is only till 2014 and a half. Now here are the actual, this isn't the anomaly, this is actual satellite image. And you could see how it's red right outside here, where that water is being pushed out. Isn't it strange that the only other place that's got these reds is right outside of Japan? And here's the blob. Remember this. Doesn't that look familiar there? App from March 2016 to March 2017. This is where we're going to concentrate, a little zoom in. Now this is a close-up of this place right over here, Japan. We're going to take a look and see what happens right in this spot. To me, it looked like a couple red dots popped up right over in there. All right, here is a sea surface temperature scan of the globe. Here's going to be Japan right there. And this is in February and March. Now let's try to zoom this in. We're going to try to get in right over here. See the red in here? Fukushima is right at the tip of this hand right here. Now look at this little red area. That's a very hot part of the spectrum. Fukushima is right over here. And you can see the currents are blowing all that stuff out. Now the water table is contaminated. Concrete won't work as the earth is a sieve. They can't even stop the radioactive water pouring into the sea to this day. Now the Pacific Ocean is dying. They're going to blame it on everything except Fukushima. But Fukushima is equivalent to 26,000 Hiroshimas. Now, our background radiation levels are way beyond what they have been historically. Now, contamination by radionuclides presents significant chemical and radiation damage to biological life. Contamination of the planet by radionuclides threatens the world's fresh water, ocean, sea, soil, and DNA. Now, has the ecological tipping point been reached? I think so. But who should be in hot water is this guy right here. This was the then president of TEPCO at the time of the meltdowns, Masataka Shimizu. Now, this is the guy that they talk about that told all the employees at TEPCO to don't mention the word meltdown. This is the guy that who should be not in hot water, but who should be in prison right now. I cannot believe that he was not held responsible for the lying act that he was. And what did they do? An outside director of Fuji Oil is where he ended up instead of prison.